Good evening, everyone. I scoured the internet and I found Dice with Rice. He wasn't dead. He was just severely wounded in a dogfighting incident.
It was wolves.
Was wolves? Yeah. Whoops. We're going to talk about the meta, and we're going to talk about things. And Sean said he deep dove, not even dived. He dove in feet first from the high dive, and he has Crons information he wants to share with us mere mortals. He did reanimate, indeed.
That's exactly right. I am a Triarch, and I awoken from my tomb world, and here I am.
Are you a Triarch to spread
stalker? The gospel? No, I'm not. I'm not into bad models and crab-like appendages. Not my thing.
I did put you over the fire. You asked for you on one side, me on the other, and that's what we're doing today. We're gonna sip of the fire. We're gonna have a romantic chat.
Or I'm gonna burn like stew or something.
Either one. I mean, maybe both. A little romance, then I murder you.
We don't have to settle for one.
Sean just doesn't want to admit publicly that he's a stalker. 100%. Let's talk about the weekend. We had our first week since the data sheet, the data slate, the newest Munistorium monkey field manual backflip compilation.
Yeah, close enough. I give that one 5 Space Wolves out of 10.
Ugh, nice.
Yeah, that's pretty good for all the gobbledygook that just came out of your mouth. But yeah, this is exciting. It's the first weekend after a new meta, and there's a lot of stuff in here, both good and bad.
Well, let's talk about stuff. First off, Space Wolves coming out of the gate, winning a tournament, big win rate. What are your thoughts on that? Is this a flash in the pan? Is this something that people just need to understand how to play? Or is this something that we're going to see more of? This is a fairly one-dimensional army, but it puts on real pressure, and it's got high toughness, lethal hits, and a lot of aggression. However, it does not move through walls. So
I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but that is a big deal. For the actual stats, for anybody who wants to know them without having to scramble for them, they played 46 games. This is the Space Wolf Stormlance, and they won 33 of those games for a 72% win rate. Not bad, honestly, not bad. Now that was out of 450 players. There were only 9 people playing Space Wolves, and those 9 people did very, very well.
At 13 total, but that was it was spread out between Gladius Ironstorm. The Stormlance was obviously.
Right. Yeah, the Stormlance is the big winner from this.
So.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with my thoughts on Stormlance in general. I basically just make the Wolves go where I want them to, and then they stay there because, well, they don't really have a choice. Now, if you're playing on more open terrain formats, the Wolves, the one Wolf unit that just shows up immediately, that one is rough, since Space Wolves have 2 different ways to reroll charges. Command reroll, and then what's the name of the strat? It gives them, what is it, +1 AP and reroll charges, I think?
I think you call it cheating?
Yeah, cheating. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Wolf cheating, yes. Yeah, moving on. There are actually quite a few armies in here that saw fairly good resurgence out of left field, like GSC.
GSC. I think that GSC has been underrated for a while. I was actually talking about this today with Mr. Forsman about the fact that I think GSC and Thousand Suns both are a very basically a good general at the helm of GSC, a good general at the helm of Thousand Suns it's an amazing army still. But the problem is that it's a very difficult army to pilot, and if you don't pilot GSC well, you can just get rolled. It has a bunch of very easy to kill things And if you're not using them correctly, it's just this is a lot of T3 guys, T nonsense, with bad saves. But like in the hands of the right person, man, this thing is devastating. It still just has a bonkers volume of shot, which I think is going to be a big deal in a word where Green Tide shows up, Necrons are there. You need to take care of these space foes. They have a lot of stuff, especially Crossfire's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, the very important stratagems that GSC has always had access to are pretty great if your opponent is going to throw down 120 orcs or just bully boys, because GSC have always been great at just pick one target, make sure it isn't there on the next turn. Now, we got to temper this a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Sample size is important. Yes, there were only 4 GSC players. However,
that's infinitely more than we had for certain factions.
Yep, that we're gonna get there. The numbers on that of the 22 games played, GSC won 14 of those, with one person going X-1 or XO. Now, why that's important is usually if you're playing GSC, either one, have no idea what you're doing, or two, are very, very good. And I have found there's not really anybody in the middle.
Oh,
so
God,
when we
it's
look
such
at
a big deal on that.
When we look at GSC results, and that's why Brad and I are bringing them up, if GSC is doing well, it's the players who know what they're doing and doing well, which means GSC is probably good. They're probably fine. As opposed to, I don't know, the 800th person to try Gladius Task Force and Ultramarines with, I don't know, Assault Centurions and Outriders and whatever else they have on their shelf. GSC is not one of those armies. They're either doing really well or doing really poorly, and I think that we've kind of seen that in the last year.
Uh-oh. Probably $2 super chat. Don't legend my Tetris, please. With the bonus.
Don't speak that into existence. Don't speak that into existence. I have Brandon. Brandon tells me that probably once every 2 days. Hey, your Tetris are going to go away? Man, stop it. Stop saying that. But yeah, moving on. Another army that's doing really well, one that's close to me, Grey Knights.
Grey Knights, they need to nerf them. Nerf everything that Sean Rice plays, is what I say.
Exactly. Just make it not even playable. Remove the data slate that made us playable. Back to 22% win rate with you. Back to the warp, I should say. But yeah, and it's funny because I think one of the things suppressing GSC win rate a little bit was the popularity of Grey Knights. If you've played the Grey Knight GSC game before, GSC just goes, uh-oh. Every time they appear, Grey Knights just appear there too. And with all those incinerators flying around, it's not
GSC doesn't have a great day with that.
Yeah.
Ooh, I need to know about this Richmond Open Finals versus Demons and Tau. I should scroll back. Was the Tau victorious? But what do you think about Grey Knights right now? Because we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about it after we played in the Dayton event. And I think Grey Knights are in a fantastic spot, especially for teams, because they can really pick on the armies that have a hard time with armies that bounce. Bouncing armies with flamers is a big deal. You know what I mean? Also, you can pick into armies that possibly have a problem with dealing with mass 2-up saves, which is carry the 2, everyone in that army. So it's a big deal on that to look at. Is this an army that's going to continue to perform well? I mean, they crushed over the weekend. You got 3 tournament wins. 3 tournament wins on the first weekend out of a data slate. Is that foreshadowing for things to come, or is that just an aberration of a weekend? What are your thoughts?
So I think it's very telling that for Grey Knights got nerfed a little bit in the data slate and then come, just punching out. Everybody's got all their models painted up. They've been playing Dread Knights. Everybody's ready to go, signed up for tournaments, and they still put up, as we see, a 57% win rate.
I mean, they got nerfed, but did they? I mean, all of the boys got point reductions.
Yep. So it's funny. My list literally I dropped a Tech Marine, and it was exactly enough points to just be perfectly even. And I was like, cool. Guess I'm hitting on 3s once. Sure. Didn't really change anything. And we'll see that as we get onto the list. Is a lot of things saw little nerfs, like Sisters, and didn't really Grey Knights, didn't really do much for their position in the meta.
I think that most things got soft touched. I don't think there was a lot of changes in anything, to be perfectly honest with you. And we kind of saw that. You know what I mean? I thought I really did think the Grey Knights were poised to make a little bit more of a push. Because of the fact of what I thought I was going to see in the meta with the new books coming out. We'll see how they do against Tau when Tau get real points in a couple days here, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show. But Grey Knights, for me, I think that they are going to do well into a lot of things here. 2-up save for one just gives a decent amount of armies a problem. There's a lot of armies that have AP issues. So if you have enough 2-up saves out there with a volume of fire, which they do, so do you think they're going to have problems against if we get more and more bigger stuff though?
No, I actually think Grey Knights have just enough mission play and just enough durability and obsec between the Land Raiders that are sneaking into lists and the Dread Knights and lists that they're going to be pretty well suited to just take on anything. Yes, the Librarians went up a little bit, and sometimes Librarians just, blow themselves up. But when they don't, suddenly all your Mega Knobs went away. Suddenly your Imperial Knight took 3d6 damage. It's just, excuse me, 2d3 plus 2d3 and oops rolled 2d6 damage.
And oops, my bad.
That's how it goes. So I think they're gonna be fine. If you're playing Grey Knights right now, you're gonna love them. They're gonna continue to be awesome. Moving on, I want to skip over Drukhari, not because Drukhari aren't awesome, but because everything we have said about them in the past got negated with the new Sky Splinter Assault Force, and now they're just fine. If you're playing Drukhari,
I like that army quite a bit. It's one of the armies that we were really thinking about for teams. We might still be thinking about it for teams. I really enjoy where they are right now. And the thing is I think that this army is going to continue to win, probably not at 55%, but I think it's going to win at a good 50+% win rate. It has a ton of movement, as all elves do, but it also has a combo of rerolls, AP, and just cheap units. Being able to just play the mission will put you in a decent win rate all the time, no matter if you have damage or not, because this army is just one of the, Dark Eldar just scores 35, 40 points in secondaries. There's nothing you can do about it. They got 1 million small units that move 16 plus. It's crazy time.
And that's what we have to say about it. You should know that Brad Chester went from I don't even want to talk about Drukhari to hey, that army's sweet.
Yep. I mean, the funny thing is I think they did a really good job with that when they put out that last data slate. I mean, it was a really good. They went, hey, this isn't a points thing, because Drukhari was not a points thing. It was we need a different detachment rules thing, and they realized that and made it. And I think they have to do that with a couple other armies here, but they did a good job with that. It's just you can't fix things with just points. If you have a shitty mechanic, either a broken mechanic that is broken, it's too powerful, or a broken mechanic that it just sucks, you can't fix it with points. You can't go, unless you're going, hey, everybody costs 3 points. Just throw a horde out there and figure it out. Otherwise, you have to go into, what is this mechanic we're working with? Do we need just a completely different one? Or do we need an overhaul of the existing one? And with Drukhari, they went, let's just make a whole new different detachment. Yeah, hold on. Let me see how many real space raid that was taken. Oh, 0? Oh, yeah, that's what I thought, because it fucking sucks. It's just terrible.
Well, speaking of that, of rules that might be a little too juiced, Oryx. This is the breakout weekend for Oryx, and there's some troubling numbers in the win rate column.
I don't see any. I think you should stay away from these Oryx, my friend. I see no tournament wins over here, so I think they're probably not even close to a problem. Walk away, say nothing, turn away, walk away slowly.
Yeah, we just got to look over at that X and 1 and XO column. And, that might be more than all of some factions.
It's several. But you go to the wall real quick. Peaches, with the Ogre Town on the horizon, 10 Wolfguard with combat weapons in Oric is not bad. Basically, if you go, hey Brad, what do you think about combo X? As long as it has enough dice, that's what you're looking for right now. You have to have that in multiple units in your army right now, because you're going to see several hordes. And as long as you are rolling enough dice, because you have to go, when you're looking at your damage, you have to go, do I have enough damage to take care of Horde? Do I have enough damage to take care of mass? 2-up saves when you're talking about Grey Knights, your Custodes, your Bully Boys, your whatever, you know what I mean? And then you have to ask, can I take care of, high toughness? Can I take care of toughness 10 or greater? And you kind of have to have a yes to all of those when you're looking. So any unit that can put out a great volume, preferably, one of the key things right now in the game for me is I'm really looking for a lot of units. If you have lethal hits, you're probably getting a consideration from me because you can take care of 2 slots when you do that. Lethal hits are a huge deal right now in the game.
Yeah, breaking down kind of where the orcs are at. Bully Boys is kind of what everybody expected to be the most played, and shocker it was, but didn't have the highest win rate compared to what you could be taking, which Green Tide actually stole that.
I think that Green Tide might be the better of the list, to be honest with you. Bully Boys, I think, have a higher, like if you're looking team wise, I think the Bully Boys might be, if you're looking for big wins, because they can just pummel people. You call that double wog. You've got Mega Noms that just come down with a 2-up save, possibly a 4-up invuln. You've got the armor contempt strat, and you're looking at a 4-up fail no pain. You've got 2 turns of them just being so ridiculously difficult to kill, and you can just jam an opponent in their own deployment zone. But there's armies that I think can weather that. If you can get through those 2 turns of WOG, if you've got enough screens, if you're patient enough, if you're fast enough to get outside of your deployment zone early, you can make that back into a game. You're like, okay, you're done with your shenanigans, cool, now I'm gonna kill you. There's armies that can do that. I mean, I think Tau is a big one on that. Now, the army that I think is terrifying for all 5 turns, Green Tide. Dude, the fact that you're surging an auto 6 inches is bonkersville. You're like, hey man, you want to shoot at my unit? Just letting you know, if you don't kill every single person in this unit, I'm going to your objective or I'm going to touch your unit. And the fact that you're going to take probably 2 weird boys and you're going to give one of them the reroll charges enhancement, so you can just basically jump over the board. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention they have a strat that says you can add the turn number to your charge and you have rerolls. You know what's really hard to block out? A turn 4 or 5 rerollable +4 or +5 inches to my charge. Yeah, man, that's not something I really want to happen when a weird boy picked up 20 boys and put them on my home objective. And I'm like, well, fuck. Like, you know, that army. And then, of course, 5-up invuln, 5-up feel no pain if you got the pain boy with a reroll your 1s on that, and you can regen some guys. And the whole thing's OC too. You don't have to put, you know, fancy anything with Green Tide. You're like, hey, what did I take? 120 boys, characters, some Gretchen trash, and some other things that are with it to play the game in my backfield. Go. I mean,
and then you just stood there. And what's important to take away from this, if you're just looking at these stats, Austin Powers, what does it mean, Basil? This is a new codex, which people have not had too much practice with. Just walked into events, and regardless of if you are a great player, an okay player, or a not so great player, pretty good win rates all around. So that should worry you a little bit, because it's not that the meta doesn't have time to adjust. It's that the orc players have time to adjust. The orc players have time to learn which detachment they actually want, which playstyle best suits them. They have time
100%, brother.
They have time to tech into different things. So why this is concerning to us right now is it's got a great win rate out the gate. It has some really, really powerful interactions. And for one of those, I think the only thing that'll really hold them back is a chess clock. So that's not really where you want to be from a rules perspective of, hey, if they have time to move all their models, roll all their attacks, roll all their saves, they're probably going to win the game. More in the weeks to come. We'll see if that proves true.
Fucking Lyle. It doesn't worry me at all. Brad got orcs nerfed when they weren't special. He's absolutely going to get them nerfed now. But I'll have a couple weeks, goddammit. I'll make it to ATC.
Yeah, he'll make it there just in time for them to hot fix.
Hot fix them, yeah. They'll do the hot fix in late June. I'll just be ruined. But I really think that Green Tide is going to be the place to be, because bully boys will feel bad when they beat you. Green Tide is going to be that army that just keeps winning in the most boring possible way.
Yep.
Also, you can YOLO swag. Getting an 8-inch rerollable charge can win the game against some armies. You're just like, hey, I did jump turn 1 and just slammed into you. Enjoy hanging out in your deployment zone. You know, that's kind of just not something you're super excited about, man. Whew.
Meta Monday asks, did Dread Mob really only work with Grot tanks? I can actually explain the Dread Mob numbers there. I think it's more frustration. I know every single orc player pretty much, except for Brad, because I didn't talk to Brad about it. We were making fun Dread Mob lists with Grot tanks and mega Grot tanks. And
the fact that all the Grot tanks and the mega Grot tanks got...
Yeah.
Tell me how many people were so excited. I can't even tell you the amount of people that either ordered or were 3D printing like it was their job. Grot tanks of every size, shape. And then they went, what? Up? So no Dread Mob? The problem with the Dread Mob is you go, oh, I'll just, I'll sidestep into Killicans and stuff. And then you realize that everybody moves at the speed of smell. And you're like, I'm never going to get anywhere because the army is just so slow without those abilities to go into. So, hey, Kenny.
Yeah. So actually, to directly answer that, for
just
Meta Monday,
for now.
It's frustration.
On the bed.
It's just frustration going on with that win rate
and
100%.
The
amount of people playing. It's not a...
Well, you didn't see hardly anybody
inefficient.
playing at all, is the big deal on that. The list that I think is going to have more play, and we only have one player obviously playing it, thank you, is I think Cold to Speed is legit. I think that having truck boys, having that, the WOG to zoom up there with a unit of bikes and just take a huge amount of space. And the thing is buggies and Defcopters, like buggies, for instance, still are in the zone of they're okay. You know what I mean? But if I can always advance and shoot, if I can always fall back and shoot, it doesn't become damage. It becomes, can I just kind of take Cold to Speed and jam people into corners and not let them play the game? I don't know if it's
that's a very valid point, especially when, if you're looking at these numbers, Warhorde, Cult of Speed, Dread Mob, Big Hunt, you only got 8 results for 4 detachments. There is still a lot of play to be worked out in those. Now, it may not be the best thing you can be doing, but more people need to be figuring out what they can take in Warhorde and Cult of Speed and Dread Mob, Big Hunt that could work. And I think a lot of people are experimenting with mainly the mid-table bully boys and Green Tide. If they
the thing with the Big Hunt is, I think that it's probably going to be the redheaded stepchild, because of the fact that all of its stuff works really, really well, but it only works on its prey. Almost every strat is for prey, and you're not always going to have the thing that you want to be prey often because it's limited, of course. Also, I'm going to the wall. Talking shit about me, and he goes, in Brad's defense, he would get second in a 100-man tournament, but also second in a 2-man tournament. So I lost a lot of tiebreakers, goddammit.
All right, before we spend the whole night on orcs, moving on, brief word on Chaos Demons. They got a ton of points drops in the
whole
last
army got more stuff. And I think we're working on this. We took it to the team tournament date, and I've seen a lot of people putting this back on their teams. Obviously, team stuff's not up here. It's just all of our singles events. But man, the orcs, the demons, I'm still stuck on orcs. The demons just have so much play into everything. I think they just have a decent game into almost anything. This is such a good army to just play. If you have really, really good play skill with your spacing and playing your own game, don't get caught up in giant middle scrums. If you just keep playing your game and move blocking your opponent, this is one of those armies where you just score points. It is so wild that you're just like, I don't really care what you do. I'm going to score about 90 and just, you can figure it out later. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I feel very comfortable with the no changes that Demons got in the very last data slate. I think they're perfectly reasonable army. They are extremely technical to play and very skill rewarding. And as much as I try to just jam big monsters on the table and over and over, it's not really how they play right now. And I think people are trying to, break away from that and finding some good success.
Yeah. Kara, it's a good point on that. Kara goes, let's see what armies survive team events cut down to 8. I think you're going to see a decent variety right now. With the 8-mans, I mean, obviously it'll be different if we get but ATC is in July. If we get another data slate right before at the end of June, which was what they were talking about, if we get something that comes up then, things will change. But if nothing changes from what the meta is right now, I think you're going to see, for the first time in a long time, to be perfectly honest with you, 8-man teams that have different 8-man teams. Because we've seen a lot of teams just bring the same 7, really, you know what I mean, for like a long time. And then you had a flex position. I think you're going to see teams take probably 5 the same and 3 wildly different things, depending on who they have as players right now. And I hope that continues on, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Moving on before we run out of things. Sisters.
Sisters are going to stay where they are forever and ever, I think. until they do something, sisters are fine. You still have to have a good head on your shoulders to play sisters. They play the mission very well. They counter things very well. Another army that has piss tons of lethal hits, which is such a good special rule. And they have not fate dice. They have the generic version of fate dice, miracle dice.
Yeah, I think the sisters, your result in a tournament with sisters will almost be directly proportional to your skill. That's just how they work. I do think they're going to struggle with green tide lists if they run into it, because you pretty much wound them on 5s with any of your volume flamers or what have you. Maybe it's time to get some more cascaders in the list. Don't know. We'll have to see how that actually shakes out.
Meta Monday, which army play into Orc or Nidhordes? I don't know which we were asking on that, sorry. Are Black Templars going to win at 53% till the end of time? Because I feel like they found their win percentage and they're just like, we're staying with this forever. This is just what we do. This army is so boring and so effective. It just works. Chaos Demons, I think, is going to play very well into both ish.
Yeah. So I see where Meta Monday's going. They don't have volume of attacks. They don't have like mid-range quality attacks. So what do you do if 20 boys walk onto an objective? Well, the answer is you just kind of drop and move block them.
Yeah.
And then sure, they take you out, but then you drop immediately in the same spot.
Yeah, you use 3-inch drops and you just get in front of people.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you 3-inch drop Plague Bearers or a Great Unclean One who just physically blocks them from getting to the objective, or you just drop Pink Horrors in a line, yes, you do have to pass saves, but if you just have a guy left, they're just kind of stuck there. And like, are you gonna, they can't advance. So are they going to fall back? Are they going to bring more guys over that direction? Like, what are they going to do when they physically can't get there in time? That is what you have to look for as a Chaos Demon player going into a Horde army, instead of my brand of Chaos Demon, where you're just playing big monsters and trying to get it all dead. If you're trying that strategy, it's not going to work into these new Horde armies.
They're too durable. They've got too much stuff.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I keep trying Demons players. I have put Scarbrand on the table so many times, and he does a lot, and he just doesn't do quite enough.
But he looks cool as shit, and he's got the best backstory. Thousand Suns, I'm not even going to touch CSM because they're getting a new book soon enough.
Yeah.
Where I don't really care. Thousand Suns, I actually thought Thousand Suns were going to be a little bit higher. You and I both have a different version. I'm gonna give you here, because I've already talked about my thing where I think that they're a really damaging army that has, some weakness to when they start losing things. What are your thoughts on this? Because you've been against them being on the team for a hot minute now, and why do you think that they're winning at the rate that they're currently still winning here?
Sure, I mean, I can.
They've had some up and down weeks. It's been crazy.
I can speak to that. So on Death or Glory, I would be the Thousand Suns player. I do have some of that first of the edition jitters where Brad just dealt like 54 mortal wounds to me in one turn. That aside, the win rate for Thousand Suns right now is very indicative of how they are, which is if you're very good with Thousand Suns, you can basically do anything. Anything you want to do on the table, you can do it. And that means if you're a good Thousand Suns player, you're going to have, I'd say, an 80% win rate. Now, if you're a middling Thousand Suns player, you're going to lose one squad of rubrics, then two squads of rubrics, and suddenly you can't see what you can do anymore, and the house of cards just kind of crumbles. What stops them from translating with their absolutely broken rules into a slew of event wins is the better you are, the more you realize just how much of a house of cards Thousand Suns is. And if they don't bring like very specific plays, I'm talking like using transports and dropping guys out of the transport to Cabal move over to move Magnus 48 inches in one turn and bait your opponent, or to do out of line of sight shooting. If you're not prepared for those plays, they're going to wreck you. If you are prepared for those plays, you're just going to kill all the rubrics, and then suddenly the army doesn't work anymore. Magnus is going to go to a corner, and he's going to live there. And then the rest of the Thousand Sun army is going to disappear. That's basically Thousand Suns in a nutshell.
Let's talk about Crons real quick, because we're going to branch. We're going to come back. No, we're going to come back to Crons because you have some stuff to say about that.
Okay, I do.
Blood Angels, I think, are going to continue to do well because I think we're going to have a meta that's going to shift to a decent amount of Horde added to it. And also a lot of that Horde is going to be melee oriented. And if you have 4 CP as a Blood Angels player against another melee person, fight on death, interrupt is a hell of a drug with guys that are getting huge bonuses. So
yeah, Blood Angels armies are getting the best of the engagements against the melee stuff that's coming out of Orcs and probably out of CSM. Tau will always be the question there of what is it going to look like? We'll know in, I guess, a few days. And if it is very shooting based, I'd be worried as a Marine player because Tau has traditionally done very well in the Marines. So let's put a pin in that one and move on. We got to see what these codexes are going to do.
I'm going to go back to Knights in a minute here because I think that Knights are Knights, and I'd like to see them shake up a couple weeks before I even say anything about them, because Knights are skew. Knights have been skew, they'll be skew, you know what I mean? So the army that I think we saw, they didn't do a ton of singles here, but we saw a lot of Tyranids do really, really well in team tournament play.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's because some of the better players play and get their best matches, or it's just a better army as long as you can stay away from their kryptonites. But I felt this the entire edition. Of course, I haven't been bothering to play them as much, but like in testing and theory crafting and everything else, Tyranids just feel like they should be winning at such a wildly better rate than they have.
And I think that has to do with how hard the army is to play at a very high level, and the fact that I think realistically there's only one detachment for singles play, and that's Invasion Fleet. Come at me, haters. It's Invasion Fleet. I have never felt as powerless as when I tried to play without exploiting 6s or lethal 6s. Tyranids just don't have a really good way to deal with a bunch of different different stat checks if they don't take Invasion Fleet. Now, one thing we did mention in the pre-game talk we had, pre-show talk we had, was stat size is sample size is important, and we're going to say it again. Crusher Stampede is not broken.
Crusher Stampede. Nerf it.
Brad really wanted to say it, and I have to temper that. If you go and play Crusher Stampede, you're gonna have bad time.
Crusher Stampede broken. Better up all the Tyranid big monsters by at least 25 points apiece.
I see he's been talking with Games Workshop.
Dude.
But yeah, I think Tyranids are good in a teams environment because, as a lot of Tyranid players will know, you're gonna lose like 72 to 90 most of the time. But in a team tournament, that's actually really good. Especially since you can do that to a lot of different armies.
Yeah, they can score points. I mean, gargoyles are still a hell of a drug. You know what I mean?
And they can keep your points down. If you look at gargoyles as I'm going to deny my opponent primary 3 times, that's pretty good
Just
for
a
keeping
huge
the differential low. Yep.
Death Guard had a decent amount of games played, only won at 45%. I really like Death Guard a lot. I don't know if it's because I think of them mostly in a team tournament sense, or whether they're gonna go X and 1 because their bad matchups are bad matchups. To be fair, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, Death Guard players may hate me saying this, but I think they're balanced. Just because your army is at a 45% win rate right now does not mean they aren't balanced. If you look over at that X and 1, X and O column, out of 19 players, 2 of them were X and 1, XO. And the rest of them were very close to a 50% win rate. That's about where you want a faction to be. Because that 45% is probably going to go up or down a little bit every week, but it's not going to drastically fall to like 20% of Grey Knights of yesteryear, or like wildly jump up to Eldari levels from the last year. So I think that's where you want to be.
And speaking of that, we've got Eldari. I'm going to skip Tau because we're getting points for him this week.
Yeah.
And I think that'll change
yet.
a lot of things. But Eldari, I think, is going to be fine. I just think that people are trying to experiment and find their new, what is their identity as Eldari. Because I think that you have to start changing some pieces in your army, because a lot of stuff got nerfed point-wise, especially, and then you've got things that like Wraithguard, which got really nerfed, you know what I mean, with all their mechanics and everything else. And I think that the index is still wildly deep. It has tons of good shit, but you have to start putting that together. What's that?
Fire dragons.
Fire dragons are amazing.
All I'm saying is start putting them in your list, and you're going to see that win rate go up a little bit. Those guys are nuts. They're 85 points.
Fire dragons out of a Falcon. Fire dragons out of a Falcon with Fugan just makes me happy, by the way.
Yeah, it just feels good. I think, yeah, Brad hit the nail on the head. And as he and I both have been playing a ton of Eldar now that is not broken to the point where we don't want to play it, there's lots of interesting things you can do. All of them require very high skill level plays and require you to take units that make sense, like 85-point Fire Dragons. If you are trying to jam crazy Eldar units just to try them, may not work out for you as well as you want. You can't just rely on the absolute overwhelming power of your rules to get you through the game anymore.
Yep.
Which is fine. I don't actually dislike that.
Yeah, teams is a different game from singles, 100%. So I try to bring them both up when we're talking about these armies, because some armies feel wildly different in teams than they do in singles. And it is difficult to be honest, trying to balance the game with both in mind is a big thing, because teams is huge in Europe. It's actually way bigger in Europe than it is here. No Tau. World Leaders. I'm actually surprised that World Leaders are 43% here with this many games played, because I just still think that World Leaders are fine where they are. Is that going to continue on? I don't know. Are they going to bounce against, Orcs and Tau? Maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that. What's your thought on the World Eaters? I am a little worried about that as the game continues.
I think World Eaters are in a spot where if you drop their points enough, they become very, very powerful. One of the things that was holding them back was they ran into Custodes and just kind of lost. Like, if you're relying on your play to be like, I'm going to tag your Wardens with the very tip of my Rhino on the left side, and then these Jackals are going to barely touch on the right side, and now I'm going to hit you in the middle and barely touch these models in the center. Yeah, I mean, that was really holding them back. Now it's just not there. And they didn't receive massive nerfs on top of that. So I think that win rate has some room to grow there. I don't know if it's just because of terrain that they're playing with, or if it was because the lists are still in flux after the last points got nerfed. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you on that one.
Well, let's look at everything that's winning at 40 or less percent. You got Custodes. Sorry, I didn't do Leagues. I think Leagues is still Leagues. I'm waiting for them to get more data sheets, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I keep the course, Short Kings. Like, it will get better.
Yeah.
We'll get new units.
But I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna go more anything. They're gonna go up more than anything else. I don't think they're going down. So we've got custodes, which this is our first week of the new custodes coming out with the new Shieldos, and didn't exactly come out swinging. They didn't come out the worst. They didn't come out as the best.
I think they have room for improvement, but also the same thing that applies to orcs applies to custodes, which is this is people who have not practiced the new codex, don't know what detachment they want to take, don't even know what units they want to take, still learning their rules, interactions, everything else, and they're putting up not great numbers, but also not like a 20% win rate. I know I keep going back to that because we're going to see some stinkers in a minute. I think there's room for Custodes players to adapt. I keep saying this in private in our discussions with the team. I don't think they're bad. I think they are completely different than they were. And if you try to do the same strategies, they will just feel like worse Custodes. And that win rate right there is exactly what that looks like. If you just try to play exactly how they've been playing, you're going to be sitting on a 40 to 45% win rate.
Lau coming in with a $5 super chat. I'm still waiting on Sean to ship me his secret sauce Custodes list. I
saw that, Lau. I'll let you in on the secret eventually.
Secret sauce.
We're waiting. We're waiting, Lyle. It does involve Caladius. Okay, duh. Moving on.
Look, KR, we are bad. We understand the fucking codex. Adman. God damn it. $2 super chat from Lyle. Also, go blue. God damn it. I'm just waiting to show up the tournaments and just getting my pile of Michigan gear that I feel like I'm going to start receiving. Admech Horde with Skitarii, I think, is legit. I've seen a couple lists performing with lots of Dragoons. This is just an expensive army. Is it an expensive army that prohibits people from experimenting, or is this an army that is just medium and is going to stay medium with not that many people playing it because it's never been the most popular army?
It's a player base that's tired. They're tired of the rules being meh, and they're tired of paying so much money. Like, come on, GW. Like, it should not be like $2,300 for the competitive list.
Sorry, my bad. I forgot that I screwed up Lyle's thing because I auto-corrected to myself. Boglu!
That's hilarious.
My bad. So...
yeah, it's a player base that's tired for Admech. Moving on to Guard. This is something that you had asked me in the pre-show. Give me your thoughts. Why is Guard sitting with 19 players, 100 games played, but only a 40% win rate?
I don't know. They're doing in Europe. They're doing so much better than they're doing here, and UKTC terrain is definitely way beneficial for Guard players, but I felt like they would still be doing better than they're doing right now. They nerfed indirect, of course, again, but I still think that with the point decreases they put on Lehman Russes, if you just put a monster body of idiots in front of all your tanks, I still feel like this is an army that's going to perform better than it is right now.
I can see that. I can see it as, they took some nerfs, right? The indirect took a steep points hike on the Manticore? Yeah, the Manticore, right? And then
Manticore got smashed again.
Yeah, the Bulgrin also took a points hike, and that's kind of where the lists were leaning to like play this very, in my opinion, boring style where you're just going to play some artillery in the back and then tie them up with Bulgrin, and then use Kazarkin coming out of reserve to just drop tons of damage on somebody. I don't know if it's the Guard player base being unwilling to switch to that, and I don't know if it's a terrain issue. As Brad had said, UKTC terrain, Guard seems to be pretty good, but here in the US, it's not translating well.
True. Paladins are still giving me bad dreams. Marines. Hey, everybody. Gladius is doing good. And everything else is having problems with basic Marines. Shocker. There you go. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. I don't think we need any more about that.
I don't know why CK did really bad over the weekend. I think this is a blip. They've been doing decent for a while. Don't know. Dark
I
Angels.
I do want to
Hit
pause
the,
on
hit
Chaos
the
Knights for a
CK for
second.
me. Yep.
I think this is another issue of the 400 players, only 9 of them were Chaos Knights. And while I'm not trying to be rude when I say that, I know a lot of mid-table heroes, a lot of play Chaos Knights. So unless you see one of the established Chaos Knight players come out to an event, I think their win rate is going to be low on average. I don't mean that as a dig. I mean it as if you're coming into the hobby and you see, why would I want to play the nice pristine knights where I can play those sweet guys that has 4 tentacles coming out of his arm? They're going to gravitate towards that one. And when you have that low amount of people playing a faction, there are more people that are going to be like that on average. Chaos Knights is a hard army to play really well. So I think that's why you see that one especially low right now. Also, free big knights. Big Chaos Knights should be good. And then you'll see that 9-player number go up probably by double if you just make good, big Chaos Knights. And for some reason, they wanted us to wait for a codex to see that.
Dark Angels. Yikes. What happened, boys? What happened?
This needs a data slate.
More so than Death Watch and it's 0 players?
Whoa. We'll get to them. Just you wait. Dark Angels can be fixed. Death Watch I don't know about. Dark Angels can be fixed with some good data slate juice. Same with AdMech. I think that they just need the data slate. They need rules to be better. They don't need points changes. I actually looked through the Dark Angel special units, looked for different combos and things you could do. As I was talking today, we need an FAQ that lets Azrael join Company Heroes. Why did they take that away? I have no idea. It must have been an oversight. And then on top of that, I think they really need to look at how do you make Dark Angels unique with their Terminators and their Ravenwing by giving them extra rules that doesn't push them over the top. Okay. I don't think maybe they do need the Death Guard treatment from the index. Maybe they do need some special additional rule that really pumps up the durability of the Terminators and the speed and power of the Ravenwing. Because the problem, Brad, is that the Terminators aren't tough, which Dark Angels are known for. So if Terminators aren't tough, what are they doing with them? And the Ravenwing, while it's okay fast, it's not particularly fast, and it's not glass cannon. So if it doesn't have damage and it's not fast, what is it? Well, it's not Ravenwing. So they need some kind of data slate that gives identity to those things without breaking them.
I can agree more. I just don't think the detachments are. When a detachment doesn't have enhancements and strats and a rule that pops out at all, whether it's good or bad, to be honest with you, that's when you know it's so mad. Because, you look at the Unforgiven Task Force and you're kind of like, what's it do? Not enough where I need to care. You know what I mean? That's a real telltale thing on that. I can tell you basically almost everybody's most of their rules. Unforgiven Task Force, I'm like, I'll generally look over it if I play that person, you know what I mean? Otherwise, I don't care. And that's a big thing on that. You should at least, again, I want excitement, flavor, whatever. It doesn't have to be the best thing in the world, but you want your army to be fun. You know what I mean? And
yeah, you want your Terminators to feel tough. You want your Ravenwing to feel fast and powerful. I think they could also do with kind of the Grey Knight treatment from the data slate previous, which is take some specific weapons and bump up the AP and damage. Deathwing Knights losing the ability to even play the game the same way as a retaliation brick that moves slow up the board and is hard to shift. That could be addressed by just giving them more powerful weapons. They're smaller, yes, but they also still hit pretty hard. Same thing with, you really can't change the plasma weapons. The Ravenwing Bikers issue is they move into position, do middling damage with their plasma weapons, and then disappear. And I know that's going to want a more experienced Ravenwing player is going to have to tell me what we need on that one.
I think they just need a new identity, to be honest with you right now. They just don't have enough oomph. I was disappointed in the Dark Angels again from a lore aspect because I thought that they were going to be leading the push for the lore because they are the current storyline peeps. And meh. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I want the line for 270 with his damage 2 swings back, and they don't look like they're giving me that. Moving on to something that also needs a little bit of changes. Deathwatch players, you finally have had enough. Admech players are the most vocal, but Deathwatch players said, we're not even going to talk about it, and just stopped.
I mean, yeah.
They just stopped. They just said, we're
kill teams,
just like the Inquisition, you won't know about us.
Kill teams are wildly overpriced, and they don't have enough special anything to get over that. So it just is, man. What do you get? You can't do anything with that. I don't think they're the worst, but I mean, there's so many other options.
I don't know. We really need to. I think if you're Games Workshop and you see this and you go, what? Nobody's even taking it. There's not even that one guy that's like, these are cool, I'll play them. There's not even that one guy. Like, oh man.
I'm gonna say, however, you're not wrong, KR. Deathwatch shouldn't be a 2,000 point army. It is usually they show up like a platoon of guys and that's it. You know, a kill team shows up. They're really good in kill team. Let's talk about Necrons and why you think that they should be Chuck Norris roundhouse kicked and their win rate is completely not the real win rate.
You're stealing all my thunder. Quit it. Okay, so
I'm setting you up, man. I'm softball tossing this shit into you. Knock it out of the park, yo.
Okay, so what if I told you that there's a broken army in the game and you could still play it and GW knew it was broken and then just didn't nerf it? They just kind of left it untouched. And you go, wait a minute, Dogs with Rice. They increased the points of some of those Necron data sheets, and Catan's went up in points. And I'm over here like, what if I told you the best list didn't even play a single Catan? And it's gone like, I think it's like 31-0 at Super Majors.
It's That's done well.
It's like 31-0. And yeah, it doesn't have any Catan in it. Wraiths are dumb. They needed a bigger nerf. They needed some kind of nerf that wasn't, oh shucks, the Technomancer is going to go up in points. Yeah, that's not really what's doing it for me there. Wraiths, how they play on the table and how the Necron Canoptic Court army functions was completely unchanged. The Hypercrypt, I'm going to play a bunch of Catan and dance around, was wildly changed because the points of everything went up. I still think Canoptic is the big issue here. If you're going to go to a tournament and run into Canoptic Court, you are probably just down at the start of the game because chances are there's 18 wraiths on the table and you're going to spend 4 out of 5 turns trying to get rid of them. If your army can't get up to midfield before they just tag everything, you just won't get to play. That's a little concerning. And the fact
Doomstalkers at that point cost with full rerolls are a hell of a drug.
Okay, the first time you look at the Doomstalker data sheet, you're just like, that's not that bad. And then you play against the Doomstalker data sheet and you go, oh, please stop. Just stop hitting me with that thing. And there's 3 of them.
And the fact that you can just go, hey, I don't want you to shoot one. You're like, no.
Right. You remember that thing that Chaos Space Marines had? Well, yeah, they're just doing that too. It's very comparable in the amount of damage it does on average. Now, obviously, the Forge Fiends, the Nurgle Forge Fiends had the potential to spike way crazy high in damage. The Canoptic Court Doomstalker is slightly tougher and does about the average damage every time. And let's not forget the army, as we were talking, the army of Canoptic Court just has rerolls to hit as its detachment rule. Go look at your detachment rule right now and scribble everything out and write rerolls to hit, and then look at all your data sheets. If your army would like become unstoppable with full rerolls to hit, now you know how Canoptic Court feels.
It's a big deal on that with what they're doing.
That's my diatribe.
Danny goes, won't GK keep Hypercrypt control a bit? I'm not sure how they do into Canoptic. Canoptic's a significantly different army, and I think GK are significantly worse into that than they are into Hypercrypt. I think that they still have a good game into it, but the thing is Canoptic isn't looking to do a lot of bouncy and cheeky moves. They're basically just trying to take over the board, reroll everything, deny you primary, and kind of jam you in. And they've got a lot of units that have a decent amount of damage. Their damage isn't overwhelming, but it's just consistent because of rerolling everything.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're kind of in a spot where if you can't get rid of the full Wraith unit, it can still be annoying. Because once you understand how Canoptic Court plays, which is counterintuitive to wargaming, which is I'm just going to go stand in front of you and do nothing. I'm going to tag things. If you give me time with my full rerolls to hit on my whole army, I'll take your stuff out. But I don't need to do that to win. It's more of just like I'm giving you the illusion that you're playing with me because I don't actually need to get rid of any of your units to win. I just need to park all of these wraiths on enough objectives to win the game, and then harass you with, I don't know, immortals with full rerolls, doomstalkers, what have you. That's the real problem of the list. It's those wraiths that allow that kind of simplistic and overbearing playstyle, and they just left them like.
And the thing is that wraiths aren't doing huge amounts of damage. They're just so irritating.
Well, okay. Over 2 turns, a Wraith unit with full rerolls to hit, yes, it will do some damage. But it's not going to threaten your Terminators. They're going to stand there and hug for 3 turns. But Danny says, is the counter to Canoptic just a bunch of mobile snipers? No. And that's another thing. A lot of people are talking about sort of the orc characters being like that. If you are a good player, snipers will never see your characters. And you can see the difference between a very good Canoptic Court player and an average one in where that Technomancer goes for the whole game.
Especially on GW terrain, you can sit on objectives and have that Technomancer basically behind a building and they're still on the terrain, on the objective. It's pretty crazy. 1+, the Bully Boys meta-knobs are objectively better than Race in every way. Yes, when you're talking about during the walk, for sure. They have 2 turns. That's why I said you can mitigate the Bully Boys. The Bully Boys are going to feel terrible against you some games, and other games you're going to be able to stall them out for those 2 turns and then start playing the game effectively.
Yep.
So Wraiths are more consistent. Bully Boys definitely have a higher spike. You can definitely win games by just going, you can't do anything to me. Bully Boys can jam you into the corner and just make you stay there, and you're going to lose 20-0 on some of those games. But there's going to be a lot of games where if you have the proper army, and that's wildly different here at this particular time of the meta. What's the proper army? Well, it depends what you're playing against. Scissors, paper, rock for the win, baby. So
yeah. Moving on to some of the other detachments for Necrons, the Necron Codex needs a lot of balance, and like the is it Obeisance Phalanx? However you say it, I'm sorry. It needs different keywords. Like they didn't address the real issues with the non-Canoptic Hypercrypt Awakened Dynasty issues. I want to see more balance. That's not just we're going to add 50 points to Wraiths and then move on. Because if they do that, you're going to see the win rate drop a lot, but I don't think you're going to have made the Codex into a good spot. At that point, you're just going to see more Catan on the table because, well, I can't take Wraiths, so I guess I'm taking Catan again. So I'd like to see sort of like a rules balance around that. If they could buff some of the, like, Silent King's a great unit right now. But if I have the choice to take him or 18 Wraiths, I'm going to pick 18 Wraiths. So I'd like to see more reasons to take different Necron units in the different detachments instead of every time I make a Canoptic list, it has 18 Wraiths. And then as I start to make the other detachments, suddenly my list turned into 18 Wraiths and I go, why didn't I just take Canoptic Court? Because why wouldn't you want a ton of wounds with the 4 Pinball and 5 Feel No Pain that regrow guys and wounds? It's just, that's what the trouble I have with Necrons right now, and why we wanted to talk about this as the last big thing is I want a reason to play my Necrons that isn't 18 Wraiths. I don't want to have to play that style because for a lot of people that's very boring. I don't want to just tag all your units with Wraiths and then wait. I think it's kind of boring to play against too, to be honest.
All of the goodness, all of the time. You know what I'm going to end with, besides promoting our own stuffs in a moment here? And saying, like and subscribe really helps the channel. It only took me to the 59th minute. But Danny goes, can we talk about whether, for team events, if Deathwatch and GK were absorbed into Imperial Agents Codex? I can actually see that right now without them doing something to Deathwatch. I don't know, to be honest with you. I thought that we should probably have an Imperial agent and something as your choice. So, Corey, I use TTS to recruit members into my cult. That's a different TTS game that I'm playing. Canoptic Court does need more Canoptic stuff, to be honest with you. You know what I just recorded today? 40keylorecast.com, my lorecast. Please go check it out. You can download it on, every single platform. And it did today. You know what I recorded today? Everything about the black ships that round up the Psychers. You know what I heard? The Imperium's kind of a dick sometimes.
You should definitely check out Brad Chester with some lore. As somebody who has just heard so much of it sitting at events, Brad has some stories, and the way he tells it is very special.
What about Dice with Rice?
Dice with Rice is, as you know, if you've seen the lack of content on the channel, we are regrouping. I wanted to get some lists together to get my own playing experience up where it needs to be. And probably after Rocky Top, which is at the end of this month, I will have a recap video with some of the lists I've been playing and why I've been playing them. So that if you want to just see, hey, what's bouncing around in my head. And I guess Brad's head too, because Brad helps with lists too.
Yep.
So look forward to
that. All of the things, yes. All of the things, yes. And as always, everyone, stay milky. Let's Queens wave us out of here, brother.